Hey, everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm John, and I'm back for another video on my channel, Musings of a Marine. This will be part two of From Angeles City to Iloilo and how I ended up in the middle of the Philippines. So anyways, as we left our last video, I had left the city of Baguio after visiting there for 3 days, and I was back to Angeles for a few days. Hooked up with the girl that I'd met there about a week or so earlier, spent a little time with her, and then it was back to Okinawa and looking forward to getting out of the Marine Corps. Never thought in my life that I'd probably ever go to the Philippines. Wasn't exactly inexpensive to fly there from Detroit, let me tell you. So as we flew off of the island of Luzon from Clark Air Force Base back to Okinawa, I looked down and thought to myself, I'm never going to see this place again, am I? And so it was kind of a sad feeling. And not only that, but I'd met somebody there that I actually wrote to for a while too, and realized it's probably never going to see her again. And she influenced me in the way that it changed my taste in women completely. From then on in, I wanted to find a Filipino woman, or at least an Asian woman, or somebody who at least looked like one. So I get back to the States, and yeah, I dated a little bit. I dated some American women, and I even dated a woman of Indian descent who reminded me of a Filipina because she had dark hair and darker skin. So, that's kind of how it went, but it never seemed to work out. And then something happened. In 1997, I'm living in a mobile home with my cousin Bill, and he is subscribed to this singles book. It's called Singles Network, and you could pick it up at any convenience store. And there was an ad in there, and the ad was from a Filipino. And so I answered it. And a couple months went by, never got any response from the letter, and quite frankly, I pretty much forgot about it. And then all of a sudden, one weekend, my cousin Bill and I were going to take a little vacation, going to go to Ohio, check out the Football and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that we did. And we come back on a Friday, and in our mail is a letter. And that letter is from this Filipina lady. And I'm thinking to myself, well, who the heck is this? Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember I wrote her a letter a few months ago. She finally wrote me back. And so that weekend we were spending it at Michigan Speedway, going to the NASCAR race. And I couldn't help but think that, wow, maybe this just might be the woman after all that I'm going to maybe hook up with and marry someday. And I'm trying to dismiss this idea because I'm thinking, yeah, okay, John, you got a letter from her. Big deal. Doesn't mean that you got a history with her. But I couldn't get that thought out of my mind. Something about it. Wow, maybe finally something's going to happen. Well, lo and behold, this was in the middle of June when I got her letter, and we did start corresponding and eventually talked on the phone. And July 6th of that same year, in 1997, her and I went out on our first date. And it went pretty well. We went and saw a movie called Con Air, if you can believe that. Yeah, a real romantic movie there, right? So I meet this lady, Diana, and I think you know where we're going from here. But actually, we went out on a couple more dates, and after the third date, I didn't know how compatible we were. She really wasn't into sports like I am, obviously. And in fact, she even thought I was a little bit obsessed with it. So I wasn't really sure. And, people are asking me, well, how's things going with this lady? And I says, well, I don't know. I guess I'll go out with her again if she calls me. Well, she did. And this was what we call Labor Day weekend. And the Michigan State Fair was going on. And she calls me up, says, "Hey, you want to go out and do something?" And I'm like, "Well, sure. The Michigan State Fair's going on. You want to go check that out?" Yeah, okay. So that's what we were going to do. So I had the weekend off. I go to pick her up at the place where she would stay. And she was wearing this hot pink top that was cut off at the midriff. Oh boy. And then we get to the fair, and she says, "Now, John, I want you to put my armor. I want you to put your arm around me because I don't want us to get separated here." Yeah, anyone who knows Diana knows she doesn't have a great sense of direction. So I'm like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And after that, I was hooked. And a few weeks later, we went to her sister's wedding. She was the maid of honor. Her sister Gina got married. And of course, I was invited and I went to the wedding. And I started hearing these rumors going around that my wife was thinking about moving to Vancouver. Now, I don't know if it was true or not, but people are asking me, "Hey, maybe you're going to be the next one, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." But I certainly didn't want her to move to Vancouver either. So, sure enough, um, it got more and more serious. And by that December, we had decided we were going to get married. And because of the immigration situation, my wife is still a Canadian citizen, even though she lived in Michigan. She was still a Canadian citizen, and she was only allowed to stay in Michigan because she was working for a family and was considered one of their employees for their company. So, anyways, we had to go through all the immigration rigmarole, and that's why I'm not in favor at all of letting illegals into this country because Diana and I had to go through quite a bit, included going to, downtown in Detroit and, filing the paperwork and her going through the interview process. But we got through all of that. And to speed up the process, we decided rather than plan out a wedding and have this big church wedding, which neither one of us wanted anyways. We wanted to keep it simple. We actually got married at the 48th District Courthouse in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. So yeah, so much for the fancy wedding. She didn't even wear a dress, if you could believe that. I just had a suit on. So that's how we got married. And then we did have a church wedding later that August, and she did wear a dress in that one. My dad was kind of insistent upon that. He, really feels strong about his Catholic faith. Down the road, I have become that way as well. But Diana was Catholic too, so we thought we'd have a church blessing. And our good old pastor, Father Ron, at the church that we were going to, was the one who presided over the ceremony. And I didn't think I'd be all that nervous because I was thinking, we're already married anyways. But I'm telling you right now, when you kneel down on that altar and you make that vow before God that you're going to love this person and be there for them the rest of your life, it gets to you. And I got a little nauseous. But we managed to get through it. Had the reception in the backyard of our friend's house where Diana was staying when we were dating. It had a tent up there, but we had the cake and it was nice. And, we had maybe about 50 people there. So my dad paid for it all. And so that was a nice thing. And obviously, after 4 years of marriage, now we're in 2002, we had made plans to go to Iloilo. Diana had not been there probably in about 8 years, maybe even longer than that, maybe 10 years or so. I'm not sure, but it had been a while, and she wanted to go back and visit her family. And of course, I wanted to meet them too, right? So we're making plans to do this. And now I've got a good paying job at Hostess where we can afford to make the trip. Wasn't cheap even back then in 2002. And set up the ticket through the now defunct Northwest Airlines, flying out of Detroit. Uh, but of course, the year before that, we went there. About 6 months before we left, 9/11 happened. And I remember that day vividly, and I remember the airport shutting down. So we get to the new McNamara terminal for Northwest Airlines there in Detroit Metro Airport, and I'm looking around for any Arabs and see if any are going to get on our plane. You have to think that way, unfortunately. And my back was absolutely killing me. I don't know why. I couldn't even sit down in the waiting area at the airport. But we made the trek over there, and we had one stop first in the old airport slash air base in Nagoya, Japan. This was before they built the new airport on the island off the coast of the city. And we landed in there and had a layover, and I guess just relaxing and taking it easy and drinking some wine, and my back pain went away. And so we get to Iloilo in the old airport, and I've told the story before, but this is how it all came together. It just seemed that no matter who I saw or who I dated, somehow it just didn't mesh. But it meshed with Diana and I, and partly because I'd been to the Philippines before. And I knew what to expect, and I knew I was going to see some sad things, and I knew I was going to see some people in poverty, and I knew that Diana's family was probably not that well to do, and there was going to be kind of a crowded house. But I'd seen that before uh, in Olongapo. So that's kind of how it was. There was about 10 people living in the one house. And Diana had the property, the one street over, where we ultimately had our house built, and her dad stayed there in his little sari sari store. But we got there, and I connected with everybody. And even after that first trip, I thought to myself, this wouldn't be a bad place to be. And it was hot. It's the early March that we get over there, and we probably didn't time it the greatest because the kids were still in school and we didn't get to spend a lot of time with them. But that's how it played out, and I'm so happy that it did. I tell a lot of people that a friend introduced Diana to me, but the truth of the matter was, I answered her ad in this little book called The Singles Network, and I sure am grateful that that book existed. And who would have thought it? I'm thinking all through that weekend, and I'm on vacation. Hey, maybe there's something there, and it ended up playing out that way. We just spent more and more time together, and there went the thoughts, of her going to Vancouver, and she was crazy enough to marry me. So that's how it played out, and that's how I ended up starting in Angeles on my first trip to the Philippines, and winding up not only going to Iloilo, but I've made 5 trips there, and we have a house there, and now we have a condo there in the Mega World complex where the old airport used to be. And it is amazing to me how it all evolved. And it all started because my buddy Bert and I got our hearts broken by 2 Okinawan girls, and we decided to take a trip to the Philippines. And lo and behold, here I am now. So, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love Iloilo. It's a fantastic city. I love going there. And, some of my family mentions visiting us over there, and I told them it might not be a good idea. There's a lot of parts of the city that still need some cleaning up, and a lot of homeless dogs and everything that's kind of heartbreaking. But it is what it is. For me, I have the stomach for it because I lived it before. But you can look at that, or you can look at where Iloilo has become now, and think it really was worth it. And I'm glad it played out the way it did. And after all this time, Diana and I have now been married for 22 and a half years. And we've stuck together through thick and thin, through disappointments, not being able to have children, things like that. But we stuck together, and hopefully someday maybe we will permanently live over there. I still hope it happens. I'm holding out hope that maybe it will. But that's how the story ends, folks. Thanks for tuning in. That's how this guy ended up visiting the Philippines and winding up with a home in the middle of the country in a city I had never heard of before. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. Semper Fi. And we'll see you next time. I think my next video is going to be my comments about what's going on with the Filipino government and ABS-CBN. Tune in then. We'll see you later.